Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Elvis Presley's Residences. Going to primarily focus on the king of rock and roll once he made it big with his record contract with RCA Victor, radio frequency, sending your music out on a radio mesh network. Not unlike the mesh network behind my head, except this is more potent. It's more vibrant. It's more dangerous. Smart dust. Anyway, Elvis Presley was big time when it was just electronic magnetic frequency, and he was hired by a military contractor called RCA, Radio Corporation of America, involving in sending out communication signaling for military purposes throughout the world, which include the profane, clueless sheep, because they are part of the matrix of mendacity. And Elvis Presley, of course, was an important ingredient into delivering woke messaging and fancy music as the king of rock and roll. This is long before we had the king of pop and Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5, who also lived in the Beverly Hills area of Los Angeles. All right, so a little footnote here, disclosure. Of all the people I've researched over the 3 years I've been doing this social media, Ronald Reagan takes the cake in terms of most Los Angeles residential addresses. He's number one. Ronald Reagan has stayed in a minimum of 17 different homes, and the number is probably understated, but at least 17 homes that were called Ronald Reagan's houses. He owned none of them. He owned absolutely none of them, which Elvis Presley didn't own any of his homes either. Neither did Zsa Zsa Gabor. Nobody does. Nobody does. This is assigned housing, like a college campus. Do you own your dorm room? No, you do not. These are fancy dorm rooms, all in gated, secured, surveilled 24/7 housing. This is where Walt Disney lives. This is where Eric Schmidt of Alphabet Google lives. All right, so Holmby Hills, Bel Air, Beverly Hills. These are the places that Elvis Presley resided. I'm going to start out with the first one, which is the home that Elvis met the Beatles in. Now, he lived in the home. He moved out of the home into other homes. Then he came back to this home because he liked it. It backed up to the Bel Air Country Club golf course. It was on a cul-de-sac off Bellagio Road. It wasn't on Bellagio Road, but it was walking distance from Bellagio Road at 525 Perugia Way. Perugia Way. 525 Perugia Way. Elvis was installed in that home in 1960 through 1961. Then later he returned. He moved out for a while to 10539 Bellagio Road, so he actually did live on Bellagio Road, but for a short time he didn't like that house. The 10539 Bellagio Road previously was occupied by Grace Kelly, and before her, Howard Hughes. You might have heard of Howard Hughes, right? Howard Hughes of the Hughes Space and Communications Company, Hughes Aircraft, military contractor, lived at 10539 Bellagio Road. If you add those numbers up, what do you get? You get 18. What's 18? Well, it's 3 sixes. 666, the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast, also known as seeing, hearing, and feeling. Seeing, hearing, and feeling. The home for Howard Hughes, Grace Kelly, and later Elvis Presley. He didn't like the home. It was too big. It was around 9,000 square feet, had super tall ceilings. I think it had 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. Those are all Masonic numbers. It was a little too big for him, so he wanted to go back to the smaller home, which is around 5,000 square feet, at 525 Perugia Way. It's walking distance from one house to the other, but he liked being on the dead-end cul-de-sac, backed up to the golf course, Country Club Bel Air. All right, so that's 2 homes. 525, which, by the way, that adds up to 12, right? That's a 3333 house. Bellagio Road, then back to 525 Perugia Way. Then The next house that Elvis moved into was, got it right here, 10550 Roca Place in Bel Air. 8,300 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. That's very Masonic. So 6. All right. Well, anyway, you can Google that. He moved into that home, 10550 Roca Place in 1966. All right. And he was there for a couple of years. Then Elvis moved into Beverly Hills. He moved to the Truesdale Estates and out of Bel Air. He previously, all the homes I mentioned were in Bel Air. Then he goes over to the east, not far, like a couple miles away, maybe 2 miles to the east along Sunset Boulevard. And then you go up a steep hill, and the second to last house on a dead-end cul-de-sac is 1174 Hillcrest Road. 1174 Hillcrest Road. What's that add up to? Everybody on cue. Everybody on cue. 13. Unity amongst Masons. Unity amongst Masons. Unity amongst Masons. That's where Elvis lived for the longest time. He lived for, about 5 years. 5.5 years. Elvis resided at the second to last home on a dead-end cul-de-sac at 1174 Hillcrest Road. It was a 5,400 square foot home. It was only 3 bedrooms. It had 7 bathrooms, I believe, and had a nice swimming pool, beautiful view of Century City, Santa Monica, downtown Los Angeles, and if you had really good eyeballs, you could look down to San Pedro and the Port of Los Angeles from 1174 Hillcrest Road. Unity amongst Masons. He lived there. Elvis lived in that home 1970 through 1976. Remember, Elvis Presley died at age 42 on August 16, 1977. Anyway, after Elvis moved out of Hillcrest Road, he moved into a former home for Howard Hughes, which is 1001 Bel Air Road, back to Bel Air. So Elvis went back to Bel Air. I'm reviewing 9 homes that Elvis was assigned to, and I'll recap them later. But remember, most of the homes were in Bel Air. Then he went to the Truesdale Estates in Beverly Hills, kind of looking down where Jose Menendez got murdered, kind of where Larry King lived, where Natalie Wood lived. They lived on the flats. Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner, Larry King Live, Jose Menendez, they lived on the flats. And before Jose Menendez resided temporarily in the home below Elvis Presley, the artist formerly known as Prince lived there before Jose Menendez did. And Elton John lived there before Prince lived there. And Michael Jackson lived there before Elton John lived there. So it's Michael Jackson, then Elton John, then Prince, then Jose Menendez got murdered and shot 13 times, Unity amongst Mason, 13 shotgun blasts. And then after they cleaned up the house and all the stupid rental furniture that was in there, because Jose was just temporarily staying there, he lived in Calabasas, building a mansion in Hidden Hills, where the Kardashians are. But this is all below where Elvis lived at 1174 Hillcrest Road. The murder happened below Elvis's house. That's a little bit of a distance. It's probably 1.5 miles, 1 mile away. I think a mile away by the crow flies, how the crow flies. After they cleaned up the mess, then they moved in Columbo creator William Link, a Jewish creator, writer of Columbo and Murder, She Wrote. He created Murder, She Wrote with Angela Lansbury. William Link moved into the murder scene for Jose Menendez. Do you find that a ritualistic thing? Do you think that being a successful producer, director in Hollywood means that you get to live in whatever house you want? I think you see that you don't. You have to live in a murder house if I tell you have to live in a murder house. You think Oliver Silverstein decides where he wants to live next to O.J. Simpson? And look at O.J. Simpson's house, 360 Rockingham Avenue. What's 3 plus 6 plus 0? 9, number 9. Where was Ben Bugsy Siegel murdered in? Number 9, 810 North Linden Drive. What's the address where Jose Menendez was killed in? 722 North Elm Drive. 722 North Elm Drive. What's 7 plus 2 plus 2? 11. 11. It's a Masonic number. As is number 9. As is number 13, where Elvis was living at 1174 Hillcrest Road. Then he moves way up the hill, almost to the tippy top of Bel Air at 1001 Bel Air Road, right across the street from Art Linklater. Art Linklater's living at 1100 Bel Air Road, but he's a baseball throw away from where Elvis is. And before Elvis was there, Howard Hughes was there. So he took over Howard Hughes' house, but not for very long. You know, I don't know if he spent 3 months in that house. He had the house for a year, but remember, he's splitting his time between Graceland and Los Angeles. It's 1977. Elvis is not healthy. He's overweight. He's bloated. I don't know how much time he actually spent at 1001 Bel Air Road. You do know that's a Masonic number 11, right? And the home across the street with Art Linklater, who's had 3 of his children murdered by accident on purpose. And that's a number 11 where Art Linklater is. Elvis is in number 11 where Howard Hughes was. And you probably are wondering what was the street address for Elvis's Graceland mansion, right? Wouldn't that be interesting? It's 3717 Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee. 3717. That adds up to 3 plus 7 plus 1 plus 7 equals 18, which is 666, 3 sixes, the mark of the beast. Seeing, hearing, and feeling. Elvis Presley, Graceland. It's 3 minutes away from the airport in Memphis. 3 minutes, that means it's kind of a noisy mansion, right? I don't think you want to live 3 minutes close to an airport. You'd be living in my town where I got NATO planes flying over every 10 minutes. And I don't like it. I don't like noise. I like peace and tranquility. So it looks like Graceland wasn't as quiet as it should have been, right? He's 10 minutes away from downtown Memphis. He's 3 minutes away from the airport. He's at a Masonic number 666 house. Don't forget, Ronald Reagan lived in a 666 house in Bel Air. 666 St. Cloud Road. Next door to the Beverly Hillbillies mansion was at 750 Bel Air Road, which is down the hill from Howard Hughes, Elvis Presley's home at 1001 Bel Air Road. You know, 750 for Jed Clampett and the Beverly Hills, that's a 12, which is a 3333 address. That's Masonic. So you see, what I'm trying to tell you is Ronald Reagan, Jed Clampett of the Beverly Hillbillies, that home's occupied by Lachlan Murdoch today. Lachlan Murdoch, okay, Ronald Reagan, Elvis Presley, Howard Hughes, you know, Brian Wilson of the Beatles, they all live walking distance from each other, except for one little minor problem. It's a steep hill, there's no sidewalks, and there's these 40-foot hedgerows, so it's actually very dangerous. I would not recommend you walking your dog on any of these streets. Bellagio Road or Bel Air Road or St. Cloud Road are dangerous roads because you got Mercedes-Benz and Jaguars and Ferraris driving fast, and there's no center line and there's no sidewalks. So it's actually set up in a way that a prison camp or a county jail is. It's a kill box neighborhood. These are beautiful homes. They're all invisible from street level because they're shaded and guarded by hedgerows and stone walls. And this is the world that Elvis Presley knew. He knew he was imprisoned. He was living in a prison. Even 1174 Hillcrest Road, it's a prison because it's a hike to get to that house. And there's not a lot of road traffic up there. Like I said, it's a cul-de-sac dead end, so you're not going to get any through traffic. It's very quiet up there. You can have porn films and you can have homicide, felony murders. No one's going to know. No one's going to hear the screams. No one's going to hear. All right, so what else we got? Well, simultaneously with Elvis living in Bel Air or Truesdale Estates, Beverly Hills, he also had 2 different homes in Palm Springs. The first one was 1350 Ladera Circle, 1350 Ladera Circle. What does 1350 add up to? Number 9. Number 9. It's very Masonic, right? Number 9. They put Charlie Manson, whose name is No Name Maddox. He lived at 14400 Sunset Boulevard. It's a number 9. Number 9. So Charlie Manson was in a number 9. Elvis is in a number 9. Ben Siegel was in a number 9 when he was killed. He wasn't living there, but he was killed there in the Chesterfield sofa. All right, 1350 Ladera Circle. You can Google that. Then he bought a home next to Jack Warner, whose real name is Jack Wansel. He's the Jewish CEO and chairman of the board of the Warner Brothers. He's the youngest of 4 Wansel brothers. Harry Wansel founded Warner Brothers. They're from Canada. 4 Jews from Canada named Wansel changed their name. They became Harry Warner, Sam Warner, Albert Warner, and the youngest, Jack Warner. Everybody knows Jack. Nobody knows Sam or Albert or Harry. And their name is Wansel. But anyway, next door to Jack Warner's home in Palm Springs, Elvis Presley rented 850 West Chino Road. And there's a gate that goes between Jack Warner's swimming pool and Elvis Presley's swimming pool. So I think Jack Warner and Elvis were somewhat friendly if they happened to be there at the same time. I've heard a number of stories about naked women that would use both pools that would come and go. So, they're just rumors. I'm sure they're not true, right? But anyway, what's confusing to me is that Elvis, his main Palm Springs home was 1350 Ladera Circle. That's where he spent time with Ginger, Miss Tennessee, after he broke up with Priscilla Presley. We're going to get into the home that that he rented or was assigned to Priscilla Wagner. Her name is Wagner. Her baby daddy's name is Wagner. And she has many names, Priscilla. She's a rainbow girl. She's a military daughter, so she's a rainbow girl. Anyway, 850 West Chino, what is 8 plus 5 plus 0 add up to? 13, right? Unity amongst Masons. So the home that's next door to Jack Warner that shares a gate between the swimming pools so the girls with minus bikinis can go back and forth between Jack Warner and Elvis, it's a number 13 house. Unity amongst Masons, next door to Jack Warner of Warner Brothers. They own Ted Nugent, they own Madonna, they own the Doobie Brothers, they own Van Halen, they own Van Morrison. They owned Elvis Presley's home next door to Jack Warner. All right, so anyway, I wanted to tell you that's 2 homes in Palm Springs that Elvis had simultaneously. It's not like he moved out of Ladera Circle and moved into West Chino. That's not the case. He just had, I think, a home away from home. I think if he wanted to date a girl different than Ginger, he would go over to 850 West Chino. And that when he wanted to go back with Ginger, he'd go to 1350. So he's toggling back and forth between number 9 and number 13. Because these are close proximity to each other. They're both very private. All right, then that Elvis got married and Priscilla got pregnant immediately, and then they got divorced not too long after they were married, and so Elvis found a home for Priscilla right below the Sharon Tate murder scene at 144 Monovale Drive. It's near Super Dave, where Super Dave Osborne and Albert Brooks grew up. Albert Brooks and Super Dave Osborne, they're brothers, and their father's name was Harry Einstein. Harry Einstein. And his eldest son was Robert Einstein, who changed his name to Super Dave Osborne. They lived on Benedict Canyon Drive, just a few houses away from where Priscilla's home was, because 144 Monovale Drive is just like 2 houses away from Super Dave Osborne. The Einstein family, Albert Einstein, who changed his name to Brooks so he sounded less Jewish. He went to Beverly Hills High School with Meathead, Rob Reiner, and Richard Dreyfuss of Jaws. Richard Dreyfuss of Jaws is Jewish. He went to Beverly Hills High School. Same class as Robert Reiner, known as Rob Reiner, whose daddy was Carl Reiner, the unfunny comedian, Carl Reiner. His son was Meathead. He went to Beverly Hills High School with Albert Brooks, whose name is Robert Einstein. Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, Rob Reiner, and Richard Dreyfuss were in the same grade at Beverly Hills High School, and they lived in Beverly Hills. And I've just told you that Albert Einstein, aka Albert Brooks, lived with his brother, Super Dave Osborne, Robert Einstein, on Benedict Canyon Drive, which is like 2 houses away from where Elvis found a place for Priscilla. I don't think Elvis found the place. I think the controllers found the place for Priscilla. It's a block away from Walt Disney. Walt Disney lived at 355 North Carrollwood, which adds up to 13. Unity Munce Mason, what does 144 add up to? Well, it adds up to 9, number 9, right? So Priscilla is in a number 9 house, just like Charlie Manson was, just like Ben Siegel was, just like Elvis Presley's 1350 Ladera Circle house in Palm Springs is. So you see, all the homes that Elvis lives are assigned housing. He doesn't own any of these homes. Priscilla doesn't own her home in Holmby Hills in Benedict Canyon below Sharon Tate's murder scene. Sharon Tate was murdered at a Masonic address, number 66. All right, which is 3333. Priscilla's living at a Masonic address. Elvis, all his homes, he has 9 homes. They're all Masonic. Walt Disney, all Masonic numbers for Walt Disney. Eric Schmidt lives a block and a half from Priscilla. He lives at 1060 Brooklawn Drive. That adds up to 7, Masonic number 7. He has 7 acres of land. He has 13 bedrooms. 13 is a Masonic Unity amongst Masons. So you got Eric Schmidt below the Sharon Tate murder scene, Walt Disney below the Sharon Tate murder scene, Priscilla Presley below the Sharon Tate murder scene, walking distance. I mean, in a car, it would take you, 55 seconds to drive from Priscilla's house to where Abigail Folger was murdered, where Timothy Leary lived. Timothy Leary lived at 10106 Sunbrook Drive. If you parked in Timothy Leary's driveway, you'd be 30 seconds away from Abigail Folger's dead body. It would take, I think, under 60 seconds to go from Priscilla Presley's home, under a minute to get to Timothy Leary's house. Now you're within 30 seconds of walking up the ice plant to Sharon Tate's murder. So you got to appreciate how Masonic and militarized all these street addresses are. Elvis mostly lived in Bel Air, okay? He lived at 525 Perugia Way, where he met the Beatles. He lived at 10539 Bellagio Road, where Howard Hughes used to live, where Grace Kelly used to live. Then he lived at, he moved back to Perugia Way, so I won't count it again. Then he moved to 10550 Roca Place, and that had 8,300 square feet, 6 bedrooms, 9 baths. He lived there in 1966 to 1970. Okay, that's 3 homes in Bel Air. Then he moved to Beverly Hills, the Truesdale Estates at 1174 Hillcrest Road, which is number 13, Masonic Unity amongst Masons. Then he moved back to Bel Air to live in the Howard Hughes house, which Zsa Zsa Gabor moved into after Elvis moved out. When he died in 1977, he no longer needed the home at 1001 Bel Air Road. Zsa Zsa moved in, and she never moved out until she died. It's across the street from Art Linklatter's home, which has been destroyed and torn down. From the back of Art Linklatter's house at 1100 Bel Air Road, you can see Abigail Folger's murder from his backyard. Okay? Anyway, those are 5 homes that Elvis lived. 4 of the 5, 4 were in Bel Air, and 1 was in the Truesdale Estates for Beverly Hills above the Jose Menendez murder. That's 5 homes that Elvis lived in Los Angeles County. Then there's 2 homes in Palm Springs that he occupied simultaneously. 1350 Ladera Circle, all right, which is a 9 home, and 850 West Chino Road, which is a number 13, and it's next door to Jack Warner, president of Warner Brothers. Then he bought or arranged for Priscilla to live in 144 Monoville Drive. So then he had Graceland, right, at 3717 Elvis Presley Boulevard, which is a 666 house. So Elvis had 5 homes in Los Angeles. He had 2 homes in Palm Beach, Palm Springs. And he had 1 home in Memphis, 3 minutes from the airport, Graceland. Elvis had 9 houses. It's 10 if you add, Priscilla, but he didn't live in Priscilla's home. So it's 9. Charlie Manson, as far as I could tell, he had 11 houses. Charlie Manson had 11 houses. Ronald Reagan had 17. So Ronald Reagan's number 1. Charlie Manson's number 2. Elvis Presley's number 3 in terms of residency in California. Or I'm just counting California because actually Elvis, would be 8 if I subtracted Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis would have had 8 houses, but he had Memphis, so that makes it a Masonic 9. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.